So, Mr. Rashid, one belief in Afghanistan is that if we recognize the Durand Line as an international boundary with Pakistan, all our problems with Pakistan will be solved, and the level of interference of Pakistan will decrease in Afghanistan. While in your recent book, you have different ideas, different point of views on this. Can you give us more things on this?
Well, I think Pakistan has to do several things itself first. For example, the tribal areas of Pakistan are still not part of the Pakistan constitution. They're not part of the Pakistani legal system. So Pakistan has to do, I think, and Pakistan has to develop the tribal areas. Our tribal areas are very underdeveloped. The literacy rate for women in the tribal areas is 3%. That is even lower than in the border areas for Afghanistan. So we have to do a lot of political work, and we have to first obviously defeat the Taliban there, and carry out political work, and then carry out constitutional work and bring them in. After that, I think we also would expect that as part of a long-term agreement with Afghanistan, peace in which the Afghan Taliban return from Pakistan to return home to Afghanistan, and there is improved relations between the two countries, that the Afghans would start looking seriously at this issue of the Durand Line, which is a legacy, unfortunately, from the British period, where Afghanistan still does not recognize the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Now, I think it would be in Afghanistan's interest, certainly, as part of a settlement, in which Pakistan would agree to contain, reshape the tribal areas, its own tribal areas, and Afghanistan would as a consequence of that, also accept to recognize the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan as the legitimate border. That would make Pakistan much more secure. We have a problem where we have both our borders. One border in Kashmir with India is not an official border; it's not recognized, and the same with the border with Afghanistan. So if you have a country which has two main borders and both are not recognized, there's bound to be insecurity, and unfortunately, that insecurity can sometimes lead to adventurism such as backing the Taliban in the 1990s, which was a very big mistake by Pakistan.
Yeah, you pointed out that Pakistan needs to defend Taliban there in Pakistan, while once it comes about the Afghan Taliban, the peace and negotiation with Taliban is raised mainly. Mm-hmm. So what are the differences between Pakistani Taliban and Afghan Taliban?
Well, I think the differences are the Afghan Taliban has roots in the civil war in Afghanistan. They had a political reason for rising up and trying to disarm the warlords and to bring Sharia, impose Sharia in the country. They were fed up with the civil war. They were fed up with the infighting. They were fed up with the treatment of human beings by the warlords, etc. So they appeared initially as a cleansing force, if you like, as a force in order to purify Afghan society and to bring the war to an end. The Pakistani Taliban, on the other hand, and the Afghan Taliban have then changed into many different things. The Pakistani Taliban, on the other hand, have had links to the Afghan Taliban, but they've also had links with Al Qaeda. They've had very close links with militant groups in Punjab who've been fighting against India, and their aim is basically to overthrow the Pakistani state.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So, as a last question for you, Mr. Ambassador.
After this, I leave.
Yeah. The recently announced High Peace Council in Afghanistan received a tepid welcome from the civil society organizations and also from the people. So, what do you think? How much of this is linked with the composition of the commission itself?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I can't judge the composition of the council. I think that what the council needs to do, and perhaps the United Nations could help in this, in these various provinces. We know they want peace, that is clear. But they need to find out on what conditions. What are the red lines that people would not want to see crossed in any agreement with the Taliban. So I think this will help enormously the Peace Council to gain support, because it will be seen as a body that consults first with the population, listens to them, and takes into account the views that they have heard during this trip, during these consultations.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for your comments on this. So, thanks a lot, Mr. Ambassador. So, I have the same question for you. How much do you think the composition of the Peace Council itself is discouraging people to trust in this council?
Well, I wish the Peace Council had more in the Peace Council. So that is my first hope. The second is, I think what Ambassador Wendral is talking about is very true. If you remember, before the constitutional law Jirga, the Constitution Commission went around the country seeking the views of people as to what kind of constitution they wanted. What do they want to put into the constitution? That was a very helpful process. And I think that the Peace Council should conduct the same kind of process. Secondly, I think the Peace Council needs to prepare an agenda or a framework for negotiations and talks. And they need to prepare themselves mentally for discussing these issues. For example, power sharing. What are the models of power sharing? If the Taliban demand to have so many ministries or so many governorships, or they want control of this or control of that, how will you meet that? How will you counter that? The whole issue of Sharia, the whole issue of the constitution, all these issues. I think the Peace Council has to prepare itself intellectually and mentally. There should be expertise. Experts should be brought in, Afghan experts from outside, to advise the Peace Council on how it can deal with these issues. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your time, and also for the time that the Ambassador gave to us. بیننده عزیز تلویزیون سبا، این بود بحثای ما در رابطه با مسائل جاری افغانستان با آقای احمد رشید، ژورنالیست پاکستانی و همچنان یکی از آگاهان امور سیاسی افغانستان، و همچنان آقای فرانسیس وندرل، نماینده اسبق سرمنشی سازمان ملل متحد در افغانستان و همچنان سرمنشی اتحادیه اروپا در افغانستان. تشکر از توجه شما.